Can- Okay, we're live. So hello, everyone. We're very happy to welcome you to this new Hangout stream that we are experimenting this year with our React Europe speakers and workshop trainers. So for those who don't know, we organized the React Europe conference from May 14 to 15, and with workshop before and after the conference. We have some very exciting talk about everything you love about React, GraphQL, TypeScript, anything. And we have workshop about Next.js, Gatsby, Amplify, animation, React Native. And we also have one with Sibelius, who is here today. And he will talk about relay and concurrent mode during his workshop and also today. So I will let him present himself and say hi. So how are you doing, Sibelius?
Hey, how are you? My name is Sibelius. I'm working with React since in 2015, 2015. So I getting using Relay since in 2016. I think Relay is a great tool. It's a great framework for data fetching. I think it's not so popular because the learning curve to start with is kind of hard. But I'm gonna try to make sure in this workshop, in this demo, that you can understand all of the relay concepts so you can start using like in your production apps to make sure you can move fast like Facebook does. I think that's it. I'm excited to be at React Europe. So many great speakers, many talks, many workshops. I think in this demo I'm gonna show like how I build like a mini Facebook, a mini social network using optimistic updates, subscription, and all this cool stuff. Very easy with Relay. So we're gonna show all the power of Relay in the new concurrent mode with suspense and all this kind of crazy awesome stuff the React team is working on.
Okay, thank you, Sibelius. So if you have any problem with sound or anything, just let us know in the chat. Sibelius will now... okay, so sound is good. So Sibelius will start sharing his screen and he will demo some cool stuff.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen and then I'm gonna show the demo first and then I can go to the code so you can see. So we're working on. I'm gonna share the whole screen. So here's the demo. You can watch, you can access over here, React Europe Relay Workshop. So you can, the live demo, the subscription part with WebSocket is not working because I deployed with now. So now it doesn't have support yet for this, but it works really great for mono repo. This is a mono repo for the workshop. So the idea is a base Facebook. You can log in, you can log out like this. You can just post what's going on. You can just see who posted something. Somebody can comment like this. You can like. So likes using optimistic update. You can see here, even before the request finish, I'm gonna see a like this. You can just comment. Actually, Europe is great. So you can see more comments if you click here. If you click here, just route for the other stuff. This is like suspense happening. So if I unlike here and go back, you're gonna see like this. You don't have to care about like which screen you need to fetch data or not. You can just post a new stuff. Post here, guys. Post here. Kind of slow, so I can post here. And then if you refresh your page, you're gonna see like this, the website is failing. You didn't show like a notification over here. So I think this is a basic demo. So you can just log out and go again using my, let's see. Okay, just kind of like this very simple stuff. So I can show like some code right now. So this is the Readme. Just start like this. Let me get here, Readme. It's very simple, so you can update the graphical schema, you can start the server, you can generate relay or tracks relay. You're gonna compile your graphical fragments and queries to optimize the graphical stuff. You can run your website. So I made like a mono repo so you can learn all this stuff from server to web. So Relay has some kind of tight requirements on the back end. So I have a simple Babel here that's will compile all my server and front end. Here I had some problem with Rex refresh. So for the server, I start like this. I create my subscription server over here so I can just get the user from connection params. I can have like the GraphQL over here, and then I'm gonna get the user from each request. I can have the scheme over here, we have the query, the mutations, and the subscriptions. Everything starts on at query. I don't know if you understand GraphQL, but GraphQL has these three types of things. We have the query where you're gonna do you're gonna get some data. Mutation is gonna modify some data, and subscription, you're gonna watch some events that's gonna happen in your GraphQL on your server. So the query we have very simple. We have the me, like the log the user. We have a list of posts that I'm showing over here. So this is a list of posts of all users. We have a kind of node, that's a node interface, kind of very related to how Relay uses. It's very powerful. So even if you don't use Relay, this is a very powerful way of refetching nodes. I can go deep on this if you want. So the way I structure is like this. We have the mutations here. So we have user mutations, I have post mutation, I have like mutations, comment mutations. For our users, we have like login and register. For post, we have like post create, so you're gonna create a post like this. For like, I have post and like. I have a comment like, comment on like. I think I missed to implement this on front end, but it's very, very easy to add it. So comment, you can also create a comment for a post. So it's very structured in a way like by features, not like by types, queries, and subscriptions, because this doesn't scale well. So that's what we learn while building like GraphQL in production since 2016. Okay, we have subscriptions here. So I have just a single one. That's very interesting one. So this is a post new. So when everybody like do a new post on Relay Workshop, you're gonna receive this event. You're gonna update your store. The code's like this. So you return a sync iterator that's gonna return a lot of events, and we're gonna load a post. We have some kind of concepts here. So mostly like for each module or for each kind of data you have, you're gonna have some kind of model. So here I'm using Mongo. So I defined my post. So post has a content and has an author. So you can do like relationship in NoSQL, no problem at all. So I have some kind of TypeScript. It's not 100% type safe, but it works. And then for each model, you're gonna define a type, a graphical type. So my type has more stuff than the model. So I have an ID, Mongoose ID, I have the content. So the author, instead of resolve an ID, gonna resolve the full user type. We have more metadata like likes count, like comments count, how many likes a post has, how many comments a post has. So show all the comments of this post, if they log the user like the post or not. So you can do like all this kind of post and like logic. We have this kind of post loader. This code is kind of abstract, but I think to resolve any kind of type, you have very simple stuff. So get loader gonna. So this kind of very complex. I create like a name in the class. So I'm gonna create a class using the Mongoose model, so I can type check on the node interface. This is very hard to explain. So we are using data loader, so we can get our data in an optimized way, or using Mongoose loader that handle all this logic for Mongo with data loader. So we have load that's gonna load one item. So it's gonna load a single post, a single user, and then you have this load all that's gonna load a connection of users, of posts, of comments. So this is using this wrapper, you can just get all this kind of crazy stuff very easily. So all model is kind of similar. So you have all this kind of similar stuff. let me see. So to create a post, we have the input fields. They're going to input some data. In this case, I'm going to input like the content. I'm going to get the user from the context, graphical context. So my graphical context has the log the user. I'm going to create the post, and then I'm going to publish the post to the subscription. So it's going to generate a graphical subscription, and all the other clients gonna update. So a subscription is a mutation of somebody else. I think for the server is like this. Feel free to ask questions. I don't know if Patrick is gonna. Yeah, you can interrupt it so fast. So this is a server for the web. I tried to set up some kind of RESL, some server-side rendering, but still no, didn't work well. So I just go with the simple single route client for sure. So I have the routes here. So this very, so if you use the React Router 3, or if you're using React Router config version 4, or use routes of React Router down version 6, you're gonna see like the structure is very similar. Like this is like a static route config. So you declare like the path, the component, if the exact or not the match of the path. And then you have the nested routes if you wanna have some kind of pattern like this. So I have two root routes like this. This is for the user that's gonna log in or sign up in the relay workshop. And then I have this hoot part, that's the log the user here. So one interesting stuff that we have here, we have this kind of prepare that React Router doesn't have yet, but they are working on. So in prepare, what are we gonna do? We're gonna prefetch some data. So instead of waiting your data loading, instead of waiting for root, load the data and then start getting the loading the code and then start loading the data, we're gonna load the code and the data at the same time. So this is gonna return a preload query that's kind of similar to a React resource, like the demos of the concurrent mode. So when I'm fetching Hooch, I also fetch the Hooch query. So this is a interesting part. JS resource is like React lazy, but you can either load the components. It's a kind of simple code that I copy and paste from issue tracker example of the relay examples. So here I'm preloading a query. We have an environment. The environment is like this is the store of the relay. So all your data from relay is gonna be in your environment. You can configure it here. So environment, it has two parts, two important parts. So you have the network. The network, you're gonna send your queries and subscription to GraphQL. And then you have the store, is the way you're gonna store the data in the store. So if you wanna store in the memory, you can just use it like this. But if you need to do some kind of offline stuff, you can just replace this with React Relay Offline, and then you're gonna have offline support out of the box. I added some debug stuff so you can understand how the relay store works. The relay store is kind of a key value store. So that's why you need the global ID. So each node needs a global ID so you can easily get the data in the store, the normalized data. So let's see some code over here. So I have sign up here. Sign up is a very simple form. So I'm using formic here. So I declare my formic key using formic key. So I have name, email, and password. I validate all this data amount. I have the validation schema. And then I'm gonna submit. So when the user get all this information, I'm gonna do a mutation in the backend. So I have this user register mutation. So I have the input type and the return type. So after I register a user, I want the token so I can make sure he's logged in. And then I'll also the me user, the logged in user. So I have the success, an error message. I have this use mutation hook that's gonna execute the mutation. The code's kind of complex, but it's very interesting because if you click twice in the button, like submit twice, it won't make this happen because we are using a hash over here to make sure you only send one mutation instead of twice, so you don't duplicate your mutations to the backend. That's very useful. So you don't need to use is submitting a form. You could just use this. It's kind of is more safe, right? So you have a spending check over here, and then execute. You pass the input to mutation. You have this uncompleted method that's gonna run after the mutation has completed. So it has an error. I can show like a snack bar, and then if you don't, we just show the success. We update the token, then I push the history to the hood. So after here, I have the hood. I made a kind of very simple. I have the preload query. So you do the preload query here outside the handler, and then you read this data like this. So if the network's kind of slow, it's gonna show the suspense fallback. If not, it's gonna just render. I made a use of hook. That's very interesting, very simple. What I do like this, I have the user here. I can read a fragment inside the hook using inline. So it's an interesting concept of relay. So I'm gonna read the user, the logged user. If it's not altered, I'm gonna push it to the logging. So it's very simple flow. So it's not added. I don't handle anything and this just push it to the logging again. So I just handle redirect. Not sure it's the best way, but it works. I have a use logout hook over here that I get the history, I update the token, and then I push the user to the login as well. Very simple stuff. I'm using local storage to store the password. You can use cooks and session storage is up to you. It's just for the demo. So here is a nested route. So I'm gonna handle this, and then I'm gonna handle feed, and this starts gonna getting more complex but more interesting as well. So I have feed over here. So I start the feed with this subscription. I made a custom hook for this. So what I have here, I'm gonna subscribe for this new post subscription. So every time like a new post happens, I wanna do something. So what I do when I got a new post, all next is gonna be called like every time a new post is created. What I gonna do, I gonna show a message new post from author, and then I could do two buttons over here. I'm gonna show see and dismiss. So if you wanna see like details of this post, you just click see and go to the route of the post. I do a logic here, so make sure we're not getting like this message if the post is from myself. So if I post it myself, I don't want to see this. And then I have this other hook use descriptions that's gonna get all this config to do the real subscription. That's request subscription here. I get the relay store from the environment. I request the subscription. And then if the components amount, I'm gonna just dispose it. So if it hooks, you can easily compose them. The logic is kind of interesting. So I have the post composer here. It's gonna create a post. So for every time I wanna create something or do kind of change my backend, I'm gonna use mutations. So I create the post. I have the update here because I'm gonna update some connections. So I want to get the post that I create to the connection, so to the list of posts. So every time I create over here, it's gonna just show up over here. So I don't need to do a kind of another refresh. I get all the data that I need in the output of the notation. That's the right way of implementing this. This is a kind of helper that's gonna manipulate the relay store imperatively, so we can add the edge in the right position. So I have the composer here. I have the feed list. So we start like with the queries, and then we have some fragments. So here I'm using pagination fragments. So it has this refreshables that's gonna generate a pagination query for me. So I get the first and after. So I'm gonna get the first three, and then I can get like more stuff. So load more is very simple. If I was not loading anything, I just get more tree. So it's very simple way of doing this. I have an linking scroll. I handle all the posts, and each post declare its data they need. So instead of letting like feed or feedless knows which kind of data post needs. I just spread over here, and then if I change anything on post, it won't change anything on feed list. So this is the beauty of relay. You can just modify your components without refactoring all the other ones. That depends on them. So I have a lot of fragments over here because post is not so simple. I have a fragment on post, a fragment on me. A fragment is just a part on the type. So I have this kind of role here. So if I'm the tail, if I'm not in the tail, I have a link. So if I click over here, I have a link, and then I go here. So you can see like the suspense fallback is not so fast. If I click over here, let me refresh here. One interesting part of this code is like every time I do a link here, let me see all. Let me try to clean the cache. So when you do like mouse over, it's gonna just get the chunk. So when I do like this, I just preload the data. The data is preloaded over here. And then when I click, it just started like getting the data before I go to the route. So it's kind of like this. It's interesting. So you can just preload your data in your code, and so your app is gonna be much more faster. So I have a lot of other stuff. So each part is a fragment. User avatar is a fragment. Most of the thing is a fragment here. Let me see. So we have post detail that's gonna get an ID. So I can pass parameter to the query. So you can see post detail. I'm gonna get the post from the nodes. So this is a node interface. I can get any kind of type of my GraphQL from it. I just need a global ID. So I get the post, and I can reuse all the components of post here. So I don't need to code this anymore. I can use, so every time I need to render a post in my platform, in my code, I just drop the fragment here, and that's gonna work. You don't need to care about like all this kind of data. I have this post like button. So post like is a component. So I have two mutations, post like and like. And then I have this kind of optimistic update. So when I do a like, I make sure like me has like equal true, and likes count's gonna be updated to have one more. So this is gonna show like the counter over here, so I don't have to go back and forth in the GraphQL. So even if the GraphQL fail, gonna do a success for the user, and then it's gonna roll back if necessary. I think like this. I made like a very simple design system over here. So I think it's not like relay to relay, but I think you need like a very simple basic design system to make sure you can scale your components. I use field from Formic here to make sure it's simple. Let me see, off like this. Not so much. Let me see if it's more something important. I have a post over here. So I can use this refetchable to get more comments like this. Instead of pagination, you can have like just get some more data in a different way. So I just getting more data using first, tree, after, and cursor, just showing like a different way of using this. You can have different fetch policies to get the data. So you have a store or network, or you can have only store on the network. So you make sure you get the data or from your client side or from the network. You can just customize on the router. Let me see. So this is store or network, store or network. So this hood here is only network. So make sure I hit the database again to validate the user. I think that's it. I have a bunch of providers here. I have the relay environment provider. I was working on a test, so you can easily test your relay components as well. So I was testing like the post detail. Let me see. I think that's it. The code is not so simple to understand. Like there's a lot of config stuff, but you can do a test like this. You get your preload query. You can mock some resolvers here. So I'm mocking this post to have this content. Welcome to React Europe. I'm gonna kill with this pending operation. On operation is like query, mutation, or subscription. I'm gonna mock this operation using these custom resolvers. I'm gonna get my component with all these providers over here. So I have a router, materialize, snack bar, all this stuff. I'm gonna render. I'm using testing library to render this. I'm gonna pass the prepared, the preload curve, much like I do on router. I can debug over here the output, and then I make sure my component you're gonna render welcome to React Europe. So it's a very simple task that you can do, like just to make sure your components render without blowing up. I think that's it. Not sure if I can show more. Let me see. Oh, so people are posting over here, so that's great. Didn't notice, but that's awesome, right? Very simple, so you can easily add more stuff. Comment here. I think that's it. Do you have some questions or no? Let's see.
Hey.
I think it's a lot of stuff, right? I think in the workshop you can just go deep in all these kind of topics and explain more.
Yeah, so Sibelius will be giving a workshop on the 16th of May about all this relay and concurrent mode stuff, and we're very excited about that. You have a link to the GitHub repo of the presentation of the demo?
Yeah, I can open source for sure.
Oh, as you want to.
Okay, no, it's fine. I think like people need to like to test this code to make sure it's working well. Let me see.
Or you can post it later. That's fine.
Just type here on GitHub. Yeah, so if you test it on like locally, you can see all the subscription stuff. I think this is one of the best real world like examples of relay. So it's gonna be very helpful for people who start up. I posted the link. So I'm gonna post it on YouTube here. So this is using concurrent modes, relay hooks. There's a lot of experimental stuff, but I didn't get any kind of bug. So it's very stable. So Facebook is using this for the new Facebook. So I think it's pretty solid. So they didn't like release as official or something like this because it's missing some parts like suspense and I don't know, something like this. So I think they need to be sure like works for more people. I think that's it. So the repo is open source over there. You can just give me feedback. If you wanna give like feedback for me, I have a URL as well. So I'm gonna post on YouTube so you can see if the demo was good. How can I improve it? I think that's it.
And
Concurrent mode.
no, the store you mentioned.
Okay. Let me see. I think I can share stuff here. Let me see. Can share here. Let me see. I have a relay store. So I have a lot of blog posts still on Medium about like relay. So the relay store, I have a print over here. I think it's easier to understand. So what's the relay store is gonna do? You're gonna get like a graphical response and it's gonna transform in something like normalize it. So if you use like normalize it with Redux, it's gonna be very, very similar. So it's gonna get like, instead of storing data like this, it's gonna store data based on the ID of the node. So a person, instead of looking for a person, you look for the ID and get here, and then you can just have halves to this. So it's normalized. So when you update like one item, you're gonna update all the item the halves. Think like this. I think the Hob made a great talk about this on Graphical Europe 2018. So the way Relay does to get the data, it's similar to Redux. So Redux, we have like a connect. relay got like a create fragment container. So you're gonna extract the data from the half. So when you're using fragment containers, not so clear, you have something like this. But when you use it, like use fragments, make sure like this props post is not like the data, not the data. So this is not the data. This is kind of a post half. So it have to read the data from the store. So that's the difference. I think like the hook's gonna make sure this is different. So here we have the data for the post, and here we have the half to read the data. It's kind of complicated. But one interesting part of the relay, you have the data masking. So we have the IG here, you have the content, we have the author. So this component, you only get access to the data you asked for. So what like post like button asked for, I don't have access over here in this component. So if I do kind of a console log here, this post, we don't have the data of the post like. So if I go like to the post like button, it has like me like, it has count like. And then if I do kind of like this, if I do this, I won't have access to this kind of. So relay's gonna hide this data from this component, so it won't break if like the other components breaks. So the other components changes everything. So it's very good. I think that's it. So yeah, I can go deep on the store and the environment. So the environment's like the configuration of relay. You're gonna say how relay is gonna handle like the network and the store. The network, how you're gonna get your data. So we have two parts. We have the subscription here, and then you have the fetch query that's gonna fetch the data to the store. So here I made a very simple cache example. So every time you're gonna get like a query, instead of going to your GraphQL, if you want, you can just get the data from the query based on TTL, so time to live, so you don't get like stale data. So I have this blog post as well, deep dive. That's great that I go deep in the network layer of the relay. So you can start very simple, use just a fetch query like this, that you get the fetch query, you have fetch retries, you send the response to your GraphQL server, and then get the data, check if it's mutation or not, you just throw the data. You can handle like timeouts as well, handle timeouts in a different way. That's why you have a tracker here. So I get the token, and then I pass the user token, the headers. So this is a proper way of handling authentication at relay. So we have cache handler that's gonna fetch the data if there's no data in the cache of the mutation. We also have the subscription here. It's very simple. So what I do, I get the query from the request. So relay gonna pass the request and variables. I'm gonna pass the authorization to the connection parents, and then I'm gonna create like a subscription client with this connection parents. You're gonna do like observables, because I'm gonna get like a string of data. So I need observables here, like promise won't work here. I transform my observable to the relay observable. Kind of simple. Let me see. Yeah, I think the part of the networks like this, if you go to the backend, the interesting part that I didn't know is when you create like your subscription server here, the onConnect return the context of the GraphQL. I think this is not clear to everybody. So when the onConnect callback is called, you return the context of your GraphQL. So in this case, I have a user, maybe I don't. Have the execute, the subscribe, and that's it. Uh, Let me see. Maybe I can try to run locally. Do you wanna go deep in another part? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're good. does anyone have question in the chat? Don't hesitate to ask. One last thing, what do you think about? Lots of people are a bit scared of using relay and just use Apollo instead because it's a bit simpler. What would you tell people who are a bit scared of relay and why they should try relay?
Okay, yeah, I think you should try relay because it's really great for the long run. So relay is very kind of hard to handle in the beginning because it has so many patterns that you need to follow. So all the queries have a pattern, like the query needs to be named from the file name, and the mutation is the same, the subscription is the same. But all this kind of enforcement is great over time, so you don't have to worry about like one developer doing one stuff and other developer doing another stuff. So it makes it very easily to find stuff in the code. So when you have in your graphical query, like, oh, this query it's take too long, it's like stake too long, you can see really which components are generating this query. So very simple. So if my post list is slow, I can just go to the post list component and make sure everything's all right like this. I think the fragment based component is great as well. So you have data components for sure. So each components declare the data they need. So a post needs kind of the content and the like stuff, and then you can just grab this component and drop in any place. You can just refactor the code in any way you want, and it won't break at all, right? So what I say, like on Apollo Codebase, you have just a big query on the top, on the hood of the components, on the entry point of the route, and then you just pass the props down. So this is very bad because if you like modify like some components in the lifts, it's gonna just break the whole tree. So relay enforcement and the data mask, you just make sure the components will only access the data they asked for, so you have less chance of bugs. So relay compiler, they released like yesterday, I think relay 9 released yesterday. They are rewriting the compiler to use Rust to be very fast to handle Facebook big mono repo. So I think you're probably not gonna have troubles with performance at all. So another stuff is like it has directives, so you can have like arguments or variables in your fragments. So this is pretty cool because GraphQL doesn't have it. So you can have some fragments with variables we use here, like in our production code and feedback house, very, very often. So we have filters of connections, and then you can handle each connection in different components with different parameters. You just modify like it's like the fragment has some kind of variables that you can modify. It's kind of hard to explain. So imagine like I use an avatar, and then you want to pass the width and height of the image. So you want like your user avatar fragment to handle different types of width and height based on the screen. If you have like just a simple fragment without like variables, you can modify it. So it's very more harder like to accomplish this. I think the relay artifact is very, so you're gonna optimize your data, your graphical query, so you can check out like how compiler works. There's a repo you can post here on YouTube. So we have a repo, so you can see like how relay gonna transform your graphical queries, your graphical fragments to be optimized. So you're gonna remove redundant fields and all this. So it's gonna make like your graphical server handling like lighter because you're not gonna request the same field twice. So I think you only feel the benefits like in the long run. So if you wanna be like a product that's gonna need to scale, that's a good choice for you.
Okay, and that sounds very cool. And do you have? I saw that you were using TypeScript. Could you tell us a bit about what the story about when it comes to relay with TypeScript? Does it help with generating types and.
Okay, yeah, I can go deep on this one. Let me share again. So yeah, for TypeScript, Relay has like a language plugin, so you can like other type generation like types. So Relay use Facebook use flows yet. So we have this Relay compiler language TypeScript that's gonna generate TypeScript types instead of flow. We also have Reason Relay. So if you are into Reason, we have this Reason Relay that's estimated. That's pretty cool as well. So you're gonna have type safe of your queries in your Reason. So have a Reason here. The new Rust compiler you're gonna output like flow or TypeScript as well. So have this compiler. It has some kind of very different, some kind of configs that you can put it. Let me see some code, like how you're gonna type your code, right? So I use like TypeScript, but I don't care much about 100% of type safety. So let's see feed here. So we have the preload query here. So Relay has this kind of generate data. So the generate has two parts, I guess. It has like the types you have. So we have variables, response, the response, and variables, the feed. So you can use this to type your component in your code. And then it also has this comment so you make sure like which kind of query you're gonna hit your database, your GraphQL server. So this is the real query that's gonna happen in your GraphQL. So you make sure this is like static, okay? So it won't have any kind of bug. There's no dynamic processing of this. And then it has this concrete request that's kind of hard to understand, but it's just a modify like abstract syntax tree to relay process the data. So this kind of hard to understand, but just the GraphQL ST. You can just play with the like ST Explorer. You can just put like some GraphQL over here, and then you're gonna see something like this. You have selection set, something like this. It's just the EST of the GraphQL, kind of modified it. So you can type like this, your queries, use queries. So if I go to the feed list, we have the feed list query type. So you have all these fragments. So you have the fragments and you have the queries. The fragments declare with data they need, but doesn't do any queries to the GraphQL. That's an interesting part. So here I have the feed post. I have posts, edges. So as you can see here, I have a fragment have to post, but I don't know what like posts are using here. So when I type over here, I can see the type. I don't know if my TypeScript is working well, but all these fragments are doing kind of crazy stuff to extract the data from the key. So this key is going to extract the data that's going to point out to here. That's going to go back to here. So you can type safe your components to make sure you not access something that doesn't exist. So post here, I have post me. Let me comment here. So when you have something like this, post dot. So we have all this author dot name. So TypeScript just helps here. Make sure you have, so author could be nullable, so you just use optional chaining here. So support for TypeScript is really great. I think Alloy started and is awesome. So you have the fragment here. Gonna read the fragment. I think that's it.
Okay.
For the reason I don't have a demo right now, but you can probably check the docs and see it working. Yeah, the docs is pretty good. see, so you have a query, but it's the same idea. The fragment over here, explain a bit, and then you can just use the fragment and consume some data. So it has user half to read the user. Think that's it.
Okay, thank you so much. That was really awesome. Can't wait to see the workshop also. Do you have anything else you would like to say, or can we wrap up?
Yeah, I'd like to thank you, like Paulo from Zate now that helped me like the deployment in the last time. That was kind of hard to do it. So I got like a free Mongo Atlas as well, thanks to Mongo team. I think that's it. I think like people need to play with this kind of boilerplate workshop code and see like if they like or not, if they have questions, and I think that's it. So relay is very powerful, but you need to know what you're doing. It's very strict. You can just some kind of hard error. So if you have any questions or like any config problems or hard stuff, just ping me on Twitter and then I can help. I think that's it. Yeah, working more on the more advanced features of Relay. I have like a checklist of stuff that I want to cover. I want to cover the fairing string that's going to the GraphQL spec. I want to cover like matching modules so you can just fetch some components based on some GraphQL data. I want to improve the tests and gonna try to do some kind of server-side rendering so we have like the right setup so you can just fetch in the server and the first render is fast. I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna try to do some more advanced stuff. I think this demo is just like the basic ones, but we have more advanced stuff that's gonna take more work, but it's gonna be worth.
Okay. Well, thanks, and so we will have another hangout next week. We will post about it on Twitter, and you can of course subscribe to our channel by clicking the button below, and that's it. So thanks, and see you next time.
Yeah, bye bye.
See you, bye.
See you, React Europe.